All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's your favorite dark sorcerer here. And tonight I want to talk to you a little bit about the Philosopher's Stone and self evolution. And I'm going to do this from a personal kind of, let's call it what it is, a personal story. Okay. I started out in witchcraft over 30 years ago before getting into Satanism and devil worship. I've practiced a lot of different root workings throughout the years. Palo Mayumbi, Palo Monte, Santeria, a little bit of voodoo, and on top of that, shamanism, druidism even. But I always ended up back in Satanism. That was until roughly about 7 to 10 years ago when I came across necromancy. And I did delve into that for a little while. But unfortunately, that was not the time. Basically, I didn't have the understanding of what it took to be a necromancer. And I did what I always did was ended up back in Satanism. Traditional Satanism is what I ended up becoming a part of. But over the last 10 years, there's been a lot of ups and downs since I came out as an ordained minister and was preaching and sharing knowledge and of study, grimoires and other aspects. I've even joined a lot of groups, but it really didn't matter. It really didn't matter. There was no evolution within that transmortification process of growth, self mastery. Until a few years ago when I realized I'm kind of bored. I was bored of doing the same old, same old. So I've watched Satanism really go downhill over the last 10 years, 20 years even. And it's just been getting worse and worse and worse as time goes on. So I started keeping to myself, only associating myself with my coven and a select few, not just my own clients and apprentices, but just a select few. And then about 2 years ago, I got my hands on a book that really changed my world, changed my life in general, and put me on a whole new path working. You guessed it. That path working is necromancy. But even necromancers work with demons. They work with spirits. And it was interesting because of the fact that I really didn't think much of it because I just did what I always did, what I always do. I study, I practice what I study. When I teach, I bring up numerous sources. So, how does evolution play into the Philosopher's Stone? Well, let's get into this. The Philosopher's Stone, the most ancient archaic symbol, the alchemy symbol of transfiguration, the Philosopher's Stone, as many of you know it today, teaches you the different symbologies of yourself, the different ways of change. When we get into cartomancy, known today as tarot cards, one card, one card kept sticking to my mind, and that card is the Tower. Okay, the major arcana card, the Tower. Now, why does this fit so nicely into this? Well, here it is. For anything to be created, something else has to be destroyed. It has to be dealt with. So many philosophers throughout history have talked about committing yourself through repetition and dedication and commitment to a cause, or even picking and choosing sides, even if that side is yourself. But how do you change when you don't know what to change? Well, over the last 2 years, 2.5 years, just about, what is this, June? Yeah, 6 month, June. Wow, time flies when you're having fun. 2.5 years. 2.5 years of study and practice as a necromancer. I studied the the books by one author for an entire year. Hell, I'm still studying them. Even all the PDFs that I've received from other practitioners. I've made enemies just because I've dedicated myself to this path, working into this particular organization. But that didn't bother me. It didn't even faze me. I'll look right at you and tell you point blank to your face, that's your choice. You want to unfriend me? That's your choice. You want to attack me? That's your choice. But it's no fun doing it alone. You know, and it's interesting because in the old days, as a practicing Satanist, I would have just buried your ass. I would have buried your ass through your own stupidity. In the words of a friend of mine from Texas, the reason people don't always engage is because they don't know whether I'm going to bless them or curse them. I've made such a reputation as a black magician and a dark sorcerer that it keeps people at bay. So here I am walking this new path. You know, got into the Facebook group, kicked out of the Facebook group twice. You know, literally on the third time, I basically said, just, I want out. I just want out of this group. It's a crutch. Yada, yada, yada. So this is evolution. Okay. This is self mastery, self growth. I started working with the spirits of this system, started drawing their seals, dedicating the altar, putting all the symbols around me on the floor, on the walls, you name it, just like I had done with Satanism and witchcraft and all these other traditions. And then one day, that all changed. They say when you reach a point, they refer to it as a breaking point. That breaking point was earlier this year to late last year. I was at work and a whole shitload of fucking rage came out of me. I had just lost it. Did not give two shits if I kept my job or not. It was that bad. I was that fed up with it. I was fed up with people. I was fed up with work. And a friend of mine reached out to me, and after I messaged him, told him what had gone on, and he says to me, "Sounds like the spirit just introduced themselves." I'm like, "Who's this spirit?" So I started doing research into the spirit, into that entire hierarchy, and I found out that when you petition a spirit to do something, they will literally do it. And in this case, I petitioned the spirit to remove anything that was not of me or mine, basically meaning me, my family. And if it didn't have benefits for us, I didn't want it. I wanted all that drama just to go the fuck away. I was tired of it, sick of it. So I ended up going into more study and more practice, working, delving into the entire hierarchy of this this group and that group. The two main sources that I was working with at the time. And eventually, I ended up going back into demonolatry for a short time, and that really was like a kick in the cojones, because when you realize that you can't go back again, because that aspect is no longer in your cards, okay? In your cards. Here, you realize that you've grown, you've matured, you've grown into yourself and what you're meant to be. And it's very interesting how the Philosopher's Stone really plays a big part in this, because you're looking at the Philosopher's Stone as a form of transfiguration, not just transmortification. Okay, because you're really doing alchemy here. It doesn't matter if it's the black alchemy of Belial or just plain alchemy in general. Here, I petition the spirits to do things that would be in my best interest. In a sense, the argument could be, reverse Christianity here, because of the fact that, you know, to the JCI, they're always petitioning and expecting their deity to give them everything. Whereas in this line of work, the left hand path, it's more of, you petition them to open the doors, but yet you have to be the one to walk through those doors. So, in a sense, the Philosopher's Stone here is being broken down into stages. When you look at the threefold, the three symbols in it, you're looking at the barrier, you're looking at the triangle of evocation, and the circle of empowerment. A lot of people believe that the circle is the circle of protection. It's not. It's a circle of empowerment. It empowers and enriches your rituals. So I've been working the last few couple of months, last 2, 3 months, with about 4 different hierarchies. Okay, getting to know them, getting to know their underlings, their courts, and the ones that rule these hierarchies. And it's it's really been benefiting me a lot. So here I am just last night. Okay. Let's see, it's 11:52 p.m. Yeah, so it would have been last night, about 11:30. I've been doing rituals, for like 3, 4 hours. And all of a sudden, my teacher gets in contact with me and states that, hey, our elder and we were talking about you, and, we believe that this, particular group of spirits would benefit you, and it's like, it's kind of ironic that you're saying that because I took a snapshot of the wall, this portion of the wall, and then I sent it to him. And it's like, I've been working with the spirit now for a while. I petitioned the spirit for a patron or patroness. It just hasn't happened yet, you know? So the fact that people have literally started thinking about this as I love research. I like history and mythology. And when I teach what I know and what I've learned, it comes from these stages. So to see somebody else, not just somebody else, but a few people look at you and say, we picture you sitting in a library, so to speak, you know, it kind of opens your eyes. So I sat there. I didn't really know what to say to that. I mean, I'm already working with this spirit. I'm working with 3 other spirits and some people, some spirits underneath them. So here we are realizing that over the last 2.5 years, to seeing where I was when I was bored, frustrated, ready to walk away and call it quits, call it a midlife crisis if you wish, to where I'm at today. And it's completely two different people, two different types of practitioners, you know? So it's really intriguing to see the difference. So like I said, I was sitting there in my altar room, my inner sanctum, and I'm just talking to the spirits. I laid it all on the floor, literally right on the literal table in front of me. Okay, not just the proverbial table or the spiritual table. I laid it in front of the spirits, and I said, I'm just sitting here talking to them, just like I'm doing with you right now. What people have told me, what I've seen, what I've asked for them to do in my life, in my family's lives, and most importantly, my own personal goals as a black adept, a practitioner of the dark arts. And all of a sudden it dawned on me. It literally dawned on me right here. While I was doing this, everything has literally unfolded in the background. Unfolded. The personalized growth, the maturity, the self evolution, the self growth is what I've been doing the last 2.5 years. And it's intriguing to go back and actually look at key points in the last 2.5 years. For an example, about 2 years ago, my boss had denied me twice for advancement into team leads. So I went to the spirits and I petitioned everyone between me and that position. I want gone. Will you help me to deal with this? Open up those doors. Now, at this stage, I didn't know what was to come out. I didn't had no freaking clue what they would have done. My boss had a heart attack, triple bypass, was out for like 4 months. 4 months. Watched ASM, the ASM become, the assistant store manager become the store manager for those 4 months. They brought in this other person for the ASM temporarily. They were looking for new store managers, new team leads at the time. And I was watching, I just it was like 4 or 5 months down the road, and all of a sudden it was like all the original individuals that I started with when I first started with this company were just about gone. All but two. Okay. For my shift. And it was like every time they brought somebody in, they just disappeared. And for a short time, I even became a closer and got that experience. It was interesting because I went from that into some other problems. And then we had the whole 2020 conundrum worldwide, the coronavirus and all that bullshit. Working with 3 to 4 people, dealing with about 60 to 70 cars an hour for a total of 6 hours straight. Dealing with hostile customers, having to do all the protocols and everything, all that stuff. Losing my main funding for about a month. Took me a couple of months to get back to where I was. And I'm ready to leave this company, just move on. And something always prevented me from doing it. Every single time. But guess what? Last week, my team lead looked at me and said that she and the other team lead were pushing to make me a closer. So what started 2 years ago is coming to fruition right now. Right now, it's coming to fruition within this company. So here I'm seeing the bigger picture. So right here, you're seeing with the tower card within the tarot card, the major arcana is playing it. You have to destroy to create. Okay? You had to remove these spirits have had to remove a lot of obstacles over 2.5 years for this to even be considered within the company. Okay? So my better half lost a car. She got into a car accident just before Christmas. Walked away. The car was completely totaled. She destroyed the car. The car was completely wrecked. She went through a couple of jobs this year. And now she's with a job that she likes. She's got a job that she likes. I got a job that, it's tolerable at best. But I don't mind it. At least it keeps things interesting. And about a month and a half to 2 months ago, she got a brand new car. It's not a brand new car, it's a used car, but still, it's a new car to her. So now we're dealing with the fallout of that. And it's interesting to see the catch-22 on these things. The person that she purchased the car from claimed to have done all this work. But yet here I've had to put parts into this car. A company has literally had to remove the e-brake from her car because this moron did not calibrate the e-brake to the brake system. Okay, which basically means the e-brake eroded from the inside out. It literally just shattered. Okay. Luckily, I was the one driving. So, and then this guy makes the mistake of saying he wants 500 a month. 500 a month. She put down 1,500 right up front, plus another 200 on top of that. Not mentioning the original part that she had him put on before that. Okay. So, all this stuff that he claimed to have done, we have him dead to rights for fraud. Okay. So we're gathering the evidence of everything that we've been working on, all the parts that we got for her car. The two companies that took a look at that car and said have not been done. Okay. So things are going in our favor quite heavily. The destruction versus the creation, the evolution. And it's interesting because all that drama, anything that was hostile, preventing us from growing, has literally fallen away. It's now background noise. It's gone. So here I am in my altar room, and this is hitting me like a freaking ton of bricks. Okay? So you see the Philosopher's Stone and the self-evolution. Trusting in the spirits that you're working with and having them work in the background. It was once said that as you work in the physical, the spirits work in the astral. It's true. You have to destroy something in the astral to manifest it in the reality, in the waking world. And that's been going on. And there's clear evidence of this for the last 3 years, the last 2 to 3 years, the last 2.5 years since I've been on this one path. So the Philosopher's Stone is a key symbol in occultism, especially in a practitioner's studies, practices, and everyday life. The reflections, the practices, the routines. It's not just a symbol for you to focus on. Like, say for an example, Sigil of Astaroth or the Sigil of Belial, for just to name a couple. Okay, in demonolatry. When you look at demonolatry and you get into these symbols, these are things for you to focus on. And when you start getting into the actual practices and literally going in and applying it to your life, you'll be surprised at how much these spirits really do help you from beyond the shadows. Even more, you're going to be surprised when people suddenly look at you and are amazed at how much you've grown, how much you've evolved in such a short time. I was watching a video earlier today. It was by E.A. Quetting. Now, personally, I find the guy's books to be, more like a storytelling, but you can always get some truth out of it. In this case, he was talking about his journey with the 11 not the 11 gatekeepers, but the 9 demonic gatekeepers over the last 3 years. And he was talking about how much he's seen, how much growth he's done. And it's amazing because when I look at what I've been doing, what people have come to me and told me about, I've evolved. More so, that alchemy symbol plays a huge part in my personal studies and practices. It's on my wall in my inner sanctum, not just the outer sanctum. It is a reminder from an alchemist's perception of the balance of life and death. It is the balance factor of destruction and creation. It plays a major part. Ken and Phoenix, welcome to the channel. I saw you pop in a little while ago, but I wanted to finish my train of thought before I acknowledged you. So when you get into the Philosopher's Stone, I don't want you to think of it as a cup or a chalice or a ruby or a ring or whatever they are going by and calling it today. I want you to think about it from an alchemist perception. Alchemy is one of the most ancient practices, as much as Nikia is, or Hexa, the Agi, the Eshin, or the Strega, for that matter. I want you to think about this stuff because this stuff really does play a huge part in our lives. You just know it by different terminologies. So I always say, back up what you preach with numerous sources. Do your own homework. And whatever you preach, always make yourself available to the public. You're welcome. So yeah, I mean, this is why I'm always telling you guys this stuff. I'm not doing it to hear myself speak. The last 2.5 years, I've learned more from this new path that I'm on than I did in 31 years as a Satanist. That's a long time. I used to be a warrior. Now I'm more like a librarian. You know, I live more in the spiritual world than I do in the world. Hell, most of the technology that we have today, I didn't even know existed before I went to Dunkin' Donuts. Hell, I still don't know a lot of it. My better half tells me I need to get into the 21st century. So it's like one step at a time. I just mastered a cell phone. Now I got to master a laptop. Keep the iPad down the road. So my point of this is simple. I want you to what I'd like for you to do is, instead of believing the dogma of the world, I want you to just go into your altar room, your inner sanctum, and whatever spirit that you work with the most, whichever ones that you relate to personally, petition them to remove all the dogma from your world. Okay, just tell them that if it's not for me, I don't want it. If it's not for me and my family, I don't want it. If it's not going to benefit me and my family, I don't want it. Okay? And sit back and watch and enjoy the ride. And I guarantee it, ladies and gentlemen, there is no easy button. You actually have to work for this. Study, practice with complete dedication, commitment, repetition, and fealty. And let the spirits work in the shadows. You'll be amazed. Have a good night.